All right, today we're going to talk about how to get your property sold. So we're going to assume at this point that the rehab's done and you've got the property and you're ready to put it on the market, or it's already on the market. What is the systematic approach to make sure this property sells? Well, first off, let's talk about this. There's two different types of market. There's a buyer's market, and there is also a seller's market. Basically, what this means is the buyer has the advantage. There are more sellers than there are buyers, and therefore it typically brings prices down. If it's a seller's market, there's more buyers than there are sellers, which typically brings the price up. See, you're going to have a problem either way. If you are in a seller's market, when you are trying to find properties, it's going to be hard to find a property, but it's going to be easy to sell it. If you're in a buyer's market, it's going to be easy to find the property, but hard to sell it. You're always going to be dealing with one of these two things. So you have to be prepared on how to do that regardless of the market that you're in. Now, typically, if it's a seller's market, it's a lot easier to sell your property. If it's a buyer's market, you need a little bit more of a strategy, and that's where people usually make some mistakes. Now, I recommend the same strategy regardless if it's a buyer or a seller's market, but most of the time, if it's a seller's market, you might be getting multiple offers or it's selling real quickly, and most people forget. And right now, we're getting into a bit of a more of a buyer's market, and it hasn't been that way in a while, and a lot of people have forgotten how to get a property sold, especially real estate agents. I can't tell you how many times I've been having this conversation with real estate agents to say, look, you guys have forgotten the fundamentals on how this works. You've gotten a little lazy because you've been able to, because the market has allowed you to, but that is changing. So what makes a property sell? A couple of things. Price, condition, marketing, and sales. Okay, we're going to talk about each one of these individually and get some details on them. We'll get started with price. A couple of mistakes I see people making all the time is what's called chasing the market. Okay, let's say we're in a declining market, and let's say that the house is worth, let's just say $400,000. Okay, it's worth $400,000. What's going to happen is a couple of months from now, the house is going to be worth $390, or the house is going to be worth $375. So what I see people doing quite frequently is saying, well, you know what, I'm going to price the property at $425 because anybody can make an offer at any time and we can negotiate. And then what happens, a month goes by, values kind of come down, and then they say, okay, well, I'll bring my value down. I'll bring it down to $415. Well, but now it's at $390, and they keep fighting this delta where it's called chasing the market. That is not what you want to be doing. What you want to do is what's called precision pricing. And I am doing this, and I'm doing this in this market today. And the idea is you price the property for what it should really sell for, no more than 3 to 5% above that. So if we really think the property is going to sell for $400,000, the most I'm going to list that property for is probably $410, somewhere in there to give me a little bit of negotiating room, but I don't want to be more than 3 to 5% above what I really think that property is going to sell for. And I've got to be pretty objective with this, where I'm looking at the sold comps, and I'm saying, hey, what has sold? Is mine better or worse than that? How do I make those adjustments? And I do precision pricing. What's cool about this is if you do precision pricing, people will say, well, what if I underprice the property? That is the least of your concerns, is underpricing the property, because the market takes care of it. So I'll give you an example. We did precision pricing on a property, and guess what? We ended up getting 2 offers right off the bat. Well, think about this. I'm saving money in interest. I'm saving money in utilities. I'm saving money in property taxes. I'm saving all kinds of money, where the guy that's chasing the market is also paying those things on top of chasing the market and losing money as that property goes down. So I've got multiple buyers, 2 offers, negotiate with each one of them, which automatically gets me a little bit higher of a price than what I was originally thinking. And I'm not required to accept their offer. I can negotiate, do a highest and best, which is exactly what we did. And we ended up getting more money. So here, instead of 400, I can't remember the exact number, we got $5,000 or $10,000 more than what we were asking, where someone that's chasing the market is going to constantly be trying to lower the price, but they're always going to be behind it. Plus, they're paying for the taxes, the insurance, the upkeep, the snow removal, the grass, all that type of stuff. And I got this property sold in like 3 weeks, okay, with multiple offers. But it comes down to precision pricing. Price the property for what it's really going to sell for. Now, what happens if you price the property and you don't get an offer? So let's say we did the precision pricing and we haven't gotten an offer on the property. Then we have to look at some things. So let's just say, hey, we did this. Let's say we listed the property for $410. We think it's going to sell for $400. We've done our precision pricing. We looked at the comps. We've been very forthright in looking at those and making sure we're being very objective on these and saying, yeah, this is really what I think it's going to sell for. Well, in most markets, what I want to be doing is I want to be tracking what is happening with showings and showing feedback. And that's where sales comes in. Okay. This is where it's important to have the right agent. So every single time there's a showing on the property, I want to get some feedback. That feedback is, number one, what did you think of the price? Number two, what did you think of the condition? Number three, are you considering an offer? Number four, is there anything we could change that would sway you or entice you to make an offer? And then just any recommendations. Now, this needs to be done. Lots of times it needs to be done as a phone call to get the right information, because you really want to dig. Lots of times when you're dealing with text or email and that type of stuff, lots of times the agents want to be politically correct or don't want to do this. They might be like, hey, you know what? That backyard neighbor is just really hurting you guys. Well, they may say that to me over the phone, where they're not going to say that to me in an email because they don't want that to get tied back to them, whatever the case is. So I recommend doing this as a phone call. If they won't do it as a phone call, then do it as a text. And if not, then do it as an email. But that's what I am expecting from every single showing within 24 hours, hopefully sooner, of the time that someone has gone and shown that property. I am collecting this information in a spreadsheet. So I've got the name of the agent, I've got his phone number, and then I've got, what did you think of the price? With this, I'm starting to collect data so I can understand. I'm not just going to change the price because one person says that it's overpriced. I'm not just going to change the condition because one person says, hey, we just hate that front door, whatever the case is. But when I start seeing some trends, that's when I start looking at doing some things. This is my favorite. Is there anything that we could do or offer that would make you want to buy the property? That could be price, that could be condition, that could be, you name it. What could that be? And we always keep that open. Huh, that's interesting. Well, that's something we could definitely consider. How would that work out? So you want new kitchen cabinets. Great. Let me get some pricing on that. Would you be willing to pay more? How do we work this out? So that starts the sales negotiation. It starts the conversations. That's something that a lot of real estate agents have lost, is how to have that conversation, have them talk to their buyers, do those types of things. So we've got that. Let's say that we've got all this information of price or condition. Then we have to decide, well, what do we do? Do we fix the condition or do we lower the price to compensate? But before we do that, let's say you're not getting any showings, okay? You're not getting enough showings. Let's say showings in the area are averaging one a week and you haven't even gotten one for the month. This is a problem. So if you're not getting the showings, it has to do with one of a few things. It's either the price, or it's the pictures, or it is the front yard. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people pull up, look at the house, and just keep going because they're like, this isn't what it looks like. So if you've got good curb appeal, and I'm not saying you have to spend millions of dollars, what you want to do is have it the same as your competitors. What's active and what has sold, you want to be in the same condition as those. Secondly, you want to make sure those pictures are good because a lot of shopping happens is actually online. So you want great pictures of the property. If your front yard is comparable and your pictures are great, it really comes down to the price. Something that can help out the pictures is staging the property. Putting furniture in and staging the property. There's a lot of staging companies, a lot of different ways to do staging. I'm not going to get into the details of staging right now, but that's something that can increase those pictures, make them look better, and get people invited to come to the property. Okay, so you've got people are not coming to the property, so it's the pictures, or it's the price, or it's the yard. You have to make some adjustment there. So what I want to make sure is before I list the property, I want to make sure the yard is not a problem, and I want to make sure I have upkeep. I want to make sure that I've got somebody that's cutting the grass and the sprinklers or taking care of it or pushing the snow, whatever the case is. I don't want to have a problem, and I don't want to have future problems with that. So I want to make sure that's good. Secondly, I want to make sure my pictures are good. I want to make sure I have great pictures. More than likely, in a seller's market or in a buyer's market, I am going to stage this property. I'm not going to do a full staging, but I'm going to do a partial, more in a different video. And then I'm going to make sure that I have precision pricing. If I have done those things and I'm not getting enough showings or even comparable, I have to lower the price. Okay, right, plain and simple, I've got to lower the price. If my pictures are right and my yard's right, and that all should be done before I list the property, I have to lower the price, and I have to keep lowering the price until I get the number of showings. Because if the price isn't where it needs to be, you're not going to get the showings that you need. So my recommendation is you go back to the drawing board and you do your precision pricing again, which basically means you go back and look at the market, what has sold, what's available, how that compares. You go through the values like we show you to, and then you reprice this property. So the bottom line is you have no control over the price. The price is dictated by the market and the condition of the property. So if you want to have that price change, you've got to improve the condition of the property, or the market has to make some changes. So don't be worried about having to make a certain amount of money. What you want to be worried about is getting the property sold as fast as possible, because you have a ticking time bomb. Every day that goes by is more interest, more taxes, more insurance, all those things, more maintenance, more costs that are accruing on that property. So every day that goes by is costing you more money. The sooner you can get it sold, the more money you save. And a lot of people don't take that into consideration. The biggest enemy that you have is those costs of interest and taxes and hazard insurance and maintenance that's going to eat that profit margin away, where you'd be better off just pricing it right in the beginning with the precision pricing that we've been talking about. Okay, so we now got our price down, and we are now getting showings. We are now getting feedback on these showings about the price, the condition, considering an offer, is anything to change their mind, and any recommendations. Okay, so let's say that we are now, the price is now at let's say the price at $395. Maybe we lowered it, maybe we didn't, whatever the case is. As I'm getting this feedback, the next thing we have to determine is I'm getting some feedback. Okay. I'm getting some feedback that if I change the cabinets that I would get, they would come back and get an offer. Well, I would negotiate with those guys and try and get it under contract contingent upon that once I got pricing, and then we can move forward. This is a sales approach. This is what the agent should be doing for you. The marketing aspect of this is making sure you have the right pictures, making sure that it's staged, making sure the front yard looks good. So that's the marketing aspect of that. Those two things should be done appropriately by your agent, and it should always be listed on the multiple listing service, period. And you should always be paying a 3% buyer's agent commission, period. Every single time. Whatever you pay to your agent, I don't care, but you want to make sure that the buyer's agent, the person that's bringing the buyer, is getting a 3% commission regardless. What will happen sometimes, they'll say, well, we'll do a 4% commission, do 2% to the buyer's agent, 2% to the seller's agent. Absolutely not. My buyer's agent has to get 3%. That's just, you've got to do that. That's all part of the marketing. Condition, we've talked a little bit about with the outside condition, and we've talked a little bit about price. Well, this is where you get into a situation where, is it a condition problem or is it a price problem? Let's say we've been getting some feedback on the condition that everybody hates the front door. They don't like the color of the front door. Okay, so I've got a couple of people that have said that. Well, I have two options here. I can go repaint the front door or go replace the front door, or I can lower my price to compensate for that poor back or the poor door in order for someone to be willing to buy the property and deal with the front door. Now, in the case of painting the front door, it's probably a lot easier for me to paint the front door and then see what feedback I'm getting than it is for me to lower the price. So let's paint the front door, see what happens. Then we may not be getting condition issues. And then it may be a price issue, and then I have to lower the price again. Now, there are some things that you just simply can't control. I'll give you an example. One of the houses I have right now, the basement, the headroom in the basement is just really tight. If you're 6 foot, your hair's breeze in it. I can't change that. That's something I just simply cannot change. So what I have to do if I'm getting that feedback is, man, that basement is too low, or that one bedroom is too small. I have to lower my price to compensate for that, where someone would be willing to pay less in order to live with that. And that's where I have to make some adjustments. So what adjustment do I need to make to the price where people would be willing to live with that? So if it's something that I can fix and fix relatively easily, let's fix that because that'll get me a higher price. If it's something I can't fix, I have to reduce the price in order to incentivize someone to buy a property that has that we're getting feedback from the condition for things that I can't change. And this happens every single week. We're getting this feedback. Within 24 hours, the agent is getting the feedback on these things. Once a week, I'm having a phone call with my agent saying, what's the feedback that we've gotten? At a minimum, every 2 weeks, we're looking at this stuff, and then we are making an adjustment on the price, a minimum once a month. Every single month, if we're not getting this, we make sure that the front yard's good, we make sure the picture's good, we make sure it's staged, we make sure it's listed with an agent, we make sure it's on the MLS, we make sure the buyer's agent is getting 3%. All that happens on day one when we list the property, or before we even list the property. Then, if we're not getting showings, we go back and we re-look at the price, we do precision pricing again, and we lower the price of the property. If we are getting showings, then we get the feedback. Every 24 hours, we're getting feedback, and once a week or every other week, we're talking to the agent, getting these details. I have them put a Google sheet together and track all this information, and I start to see some trends. Everybody doesn't like the front door. So then I say, great, let's go repaint the front door. Or if there's things that I can't change, then I lower my price to compensate for that. And every 30 days, I am lowering my price 3 to 5% at a minimum to get this property sold. And I'm doing that every single month. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to save money because I'm not going to be paying the taxes. I'm not going to pay the interest. It's better for me to get the property sold and get sold fast than it is for me to chase the market, as we have been talking about. So what are the things we should be expecting? Well, one, you should be expecting your agent to take care of a lot of this for you. Your agent should be understanding or deciding what needs to happen with the staging, whether you do that with yourself or a staging company, or they help you out with that. Your agent needs to make sure the property is listed on the MLS and all the other populated sites. Your agent needs to make sure there's a sign on the property. Your agent needs to make sure there's a key box on the front door. Your agent needs to make sure that 3% is going to the buyer's agent exclusively, and they're actually getting that. Your agent needs to make sure that the pictures of the property are good and look great, and they should make sure that that front yard picture looks great as well. That should all happen at the time of listing or before listing. Then every single time there's a showing, your agent is getting feedback on each one of these, and they're doing sells to every single person saying, is there anything we could do to the property or to the price that would incentivize you to make an offer on this property? We need to know the answer to that. And that typically should be done in a phone conversation. I'm going to call multiple times, and then I'm going to text, and then I'm going to call again, and then I'm going to text, and then I'm going to email, but I've got to get feedback. And I want to know that they've left messages, they've called, or they text. I want to see the conversation log, like, hey, I called on this date, I called on this date, I called on this date for these. That's part of my spreadsheet to say, hey, I want to make sure that the agent is doing their job on the sales side of having these conversations. I also need to make sure the agent's doing their job of, is it price? Is it condition? Are they considering an offer? Now, if I've got a bunch of people saying, yeah, we're considering an offer, I'm not going to make the adjustment on the price right away. I'm going to see where that goes, but then I'll have to make an adjustment or change the condition. Then it is basically deciding, do I lower the price or do I change the condition? Every 2 weeks, no more than 30 days, I am doing one of these things. I am either fixing something to do with the condition, or I am lowering the price. Typically, price is the biggest problem, and condition is something that if it's easy to fix, we fix it. Otherwise, we have to make a price adjustments to make the compensation for something like the low headroom. So this is the strategy to sell a property. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. Selling the property as fast as possible is the best thing for you. You're not paying more in interest, you're not paying taxes, you're not paying insurance, you're not paying upkeep, you don't have any of the risks of vandalism or anything else like that. The faster you get this property sold, the better off it is for you. Otherwise, what I see a lot of people doing is they just hold firm on a price, they start chasing the market, then all these expenses keep adding up and they end up in a world of hurt, which is where we don't want you to be. So precision price it, follow this formula, make sure you've got the right agent that is going and doing this, and you're making those price reductions every 30 days at a minimum.